So the Tennessee Titans, do they finally have their quarterback? We are going to talk about it in a little bit on this episode of Chatt It Up Sports. What's up? I am Greg Larnard, and over this way is my good friend, Mr. Miggy Malcolm Harris. Mig, it's great to have you back, brother. It's good to see your face. I just hate that you're so far away now. You were literally right down the road.
I was down the street, but just know I'm down the street for when things are off and popping. I'm never too far.
That's true.
I'm a car ride away.
That's true. You are just a little car ride away, or either way, whether we going up there or you're coming back down here to Chattanooga, you always have a home back here in Chat Town. But I'm excited to see what opportunities open up for you and for us because of you up there in Knoxville. I mean, we already got the big time follow from what's his name, the new voice of the Vols.
Hey, Mike Keith, man,
That's
coming
right, Mike
soon.
Keith. Speaking
Coming
of the
soon.
Tennessee Titans, former voice of the Tennessee Titans, Mike Keith.
Yeah, touchdown Tennessee.
Touchdown Tennessee. God, I can't wait for the Vols football season. Obviously going to be a new quarterback. And speaking of quarterbacks, the Tennessee Titans, have they found their new quarterback? We will find out in just a few minutes. The thoughts of a man much smarter than both of us when it comes to the Tennessee Titans. But first and foremost, don't forget to follow us all over social media at Chatt It Up Sports. Also, wherever you get your podcasts, 5 stars, nothing less. Make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend to tell their mom and sister and daughters and brothers and sisters and uncles and cousins and all of the good things and all of the different people in the family line and whatnot. Again, that's at Chatt It Up Sports on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of that stuff. But joining us now to talk Tennessee Titans football, as I alluded to, is a man who knows more about this team than either of us do. So we're, excited to have him on. He's a first-time man to the show. He is a contributor to TitansWire.com. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Mark Mihalko here on Chatt It Up Sports for the very first time. Mark, what's going on? Welcome into the show, my friend.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here and can't wait to talk to Titans.
I cannot wait to talk a little bit about these Tennessee Titans as well. So first and foremost, have to start here. Thoughts on Cam Ward's future as the potential face of this franchise? Just give me your thoughts on that. The pick, we kind of knew that it was coming. And yeah, just start there because I have a couple of other follow-up questions about Cam Ward, but start on what you think of him as a player, as a person, and the potential, again, face of the franchise moving forward.
Well, I kind of knew, like everybody else, that I kind of felt that the Titans were going to take Ward pretty much since the combine. It made the most sense. And, I think as news keeps trickling out, I mean, I just saw a report today that had Tennessee passed on him, the Browns would have jumped all over him at 2. So I think by the end of the whole process, Ward was really the only way to go. As a player, he can make every throw. And I think more than that, I've heard so many people, whether it's the coaching staff, other players, talk about his leadership and him as a person. And, you could have all the talent in the world, but if your teammates don't follow you, you're not going to be successful. And I think Ward brings that to the table. Just watching, I was during the draft, during the first round. Actually, I think it was even before the draft started when I was watching, all the red carpet stuff. And, prospect after prospect was coming in and, they were all, they had their bling and their diamonds and their gold chains and their custom suits. But then here comes Cam Ward in a very humble, very just normal, everyday guy look. And that's the demeanor he comes across with all the time. And you know, if I don't know if you looked at his X profile, his pinned tweet is about rising from the bottom. Always referencing back to that being a 0-star recruit and overcoming. And I think that is a huge trait that they can build upon with him under center.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about, some of the characteristics that, make him who he is. And my follow-up question was going to be, what characteristics do you believe he possesses that set him apart from other profile quarterback prospects that Tennessee's drafted in the past?
That's a really good question. Um, we'll compare him to Levis. Levis, he has you know, he carries himself in a much different manner, a lot more arrogant, a lot more. I remember Levis before he came out was talking about, well, I can throw the ball 100 yards. I have the strongest arm. I'm going to light this up. You know, Ward has a little bit of that, but he's also very centered, grounded, maybe the word to use. He plays with an edge, but he comes across in a very humble way that kind of, endears himself. And I think his leadership is a lot better. I saw a thing where he was actually texting with every draft pick, like moments right at, like they got the call. I think I saw the tight end talking, Gunnar Helm, that he was on the phone with the Titans, and Cam Ward was buzzing in, and he missed the call because he was still on the phone with the Titans, and he had a text as soon as he hung up. I mean, that says something about the number one pick, but he's already ingraining himself to reaching out and talking to the rookies that are going to be coming in with it. I mean, that's a pretty big move.
Me.
One thing that I saw that I really admired was during Cam's pre-draft process, the way that he treated every single person within the Titans organization, from the custodial staff to everyday people in the ticket sales office. I mean, he made everybody feel like they were the owner of the Tennessee Titans. So being able to see that, and we'll talk about it, but there's a certain quarterback that he used to train with and that he still trains with, Shador Sanders, that people thought would go right around the area where he went. That even justified him being above Cam. I love Shador. I think it was ridiculous what happened, but also you have to be a CEO as a quarterback. And being a CEO, you have to represent a franchise with everybody's best interest in mind and not self, but others. There is not a better CEO in this draft than Cam Ward. He absolutely fits the mold of what you want. And I think he's going to represent this franchise very well for the next, hopefully, 1+ decades, right? I want him to have a long, healthy career. Are there things about Cam's game that I don't necessarily care for? Yeah, absolutely. I do think there's some things that he can clean up, but I do think for where this franchise is right now, you have to be able to hang your hat and to be able to get people into Nissan Stadium. Cam Ward can do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I had heard those stories and those reports coming out about the way he carried himself when he was in, Nashville. Um, I definitely think he was the right pick, and I think that I think taking him. I think the thing about taking him another number one. I mean, you could debate all day long on whether or not Hunter was the top prospect in his class overall, but with where Tennessee is at, with the new stadium opening next year, bringing a face of the franchise in now and letting him grow for the opening of that stadium is a huge move. And I think he can handle that. And I think he can like you said, the way he carries himself will allow him. And I think something that shouldn't go overlooked, and it was subtle. the fact that Warren Moon signed off and is going to allow them to unretire his jersey for Ward to wear it is huge. Moon mentioned that day, I don't know if it was on camera or off camera, that other quarterbacks in Tennessee had approached him in the past and he said no. So, if Warren Moon is going to, embrace it, he sees the potential as well. And I think that's a huge step. I think that's a huge thing for the organization.
Well said. Very well said.
All right, I want to talk a little bit about the rest of this draft because the Titans had 9 picks overall. And yeah, they did go with an edge out of UCLA. I'm not even going to try to pretend that I know how to pronounce his last name or his first name for that matter. But I did want to, and obviously they went with Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State in the 3rd round. But after that, there was a lot of offensive players taken in this draft. Talk to me about some of the guys that they brought in to potentially help out with Cam Ward, whether it be the wide receiver out of Florida, Gunnar Helm out of Texas, the running back out of Michigan, the offensive guard, Jackson Slater out of Sacramento State. Talk to me a little bit about this draft. I've heard a lot of people call it sort of like a foundational draft to really help sort of solidify and build that foundation for, like you said, when they go into the new stadium next year.
Yeah, crazy fact, the Titans became the first team in NFL history to take 3 skill position players in the same round in an NFL draft.
That's
That
crazy.
4th round where they took DK, they took Helm, and they took Yamanor. That was crazy. And I'll tell you what, the second receiver, Eli, I think it's a Yam. I have a hard time. It's like a Yamanor or something. The
Yeah,
pronunciation, I'm probably
I am.
screwing it all up. I had him when I would do the Titans Wire mock drafts, which I did all of our I think we did 5 mock drafts leading up to the thing. I started with, 1 round and eventually finished it with the 7th round. Every time I went over 3 rounds, I took him consistently in the second, 3rd round. He was a really good value. They could have taken him with that first pick instead of DK, and nobody would have thought twice about it. And the fact they got him at the end of the round was amazing. Um, I do think that, and I think before I get there, I think you also got to look at the signing of Lockett hours before the draft as another draft pick, to throw into the mix, to bring in a experienced veteran wideout that, to go along with Calvin Ridley and Van Jefferson to help bring these young receivers and young playmakers along. And they each have a different skill set, and it's something, I think I heard him talking, DK has the speed to take the top off the defense, run after catch. He was like the leading punt returner in the SEC. I think I saw something where he averaged like 16 yards of punt return, which is insane if it's true. I only looked at one site on that, but that's what it said. 16. That was in his highlight. Um, they're all young. I think they're all under the age of 23.
Yep.
Every one of those picks on day 3 are under the age of 23. They're all young, and a lot of them were team captains, which is something, when they talk about the foundational aspect, they went and got people that loved football, that had different skill sets. One the receiver from Stanford that we were just talking about, he's good in the red zone. If you saw his tape against Travis Hunter, he roasted Travis Hunter 2 years ago. I think he had something. He set like the Stanford team record in the game, matched up pretty much 1-on-1 with Hunter all game long.
Dang.
If you haven't seen it, look. It's on social media. It's amazing. The highlights are insane. Um, like I said, DK can take the top off the defense. Um, all experienced. I mean, yeah, they all have some warts. The guy from Stanford has some drop issues. The tight end, Gunnar Helm from Texas, didn't test well. He says he was injured. Don't know. I mean, we have to go by what he says. But you know what? He put up 800 yards in the SEC last year. He was a security blanket. Um, the guard they took from Sacramento State, uh, he's a 4-year starter, a mauler in the run game. And if you watch the Titans last year, that offensive line needed some work.
Oof.
And if they can get a young player in that they could develop, that's tremendous. And then the back, Mullings out of Michigan, he's exactly what Brian Callahan talked about, a big physical change of pace to Pollard and Spears. So I think this third day of the draft was really a home run for the organization. I mean, I thought the first 2 days were good. We could debate, you know, I thought Winston was a steal in the third round. Had he not tore up his knee last year, he's probably late first, early second, easy. The UCLA edge, we could debate that one. I mean, he's got upside. He's played 11 games at edge, but he's the experienced off-ball linebacker at Cal. So he's got versatility. So I mean, there's a lot to like with what they did in this with this class.
Yeah, I mean, I think to your point, the Titans got better all the way around. I think team speed was something that is super important to this Callahan regime, and I think they found it. Right? I mean, I love rounds 3 through 6. I mean, honestly, I think that they came away with some great value and some things to support Cam. I mean, you even talk about undrafted free agents. I think they hit on quite a few as well. So being able just to see, all right, this regime knows like, hey, we want to compete. This is a true 3-year overhaul. We're going to have next year and the year after that with a rookie contract and some cap space and contracts that aren't really that big. I think the pillar players that you have on this roster really, there are two, right? I think you have Calvin Ridley, which he's already been paid, so that money's going to be on the books, and then you have Jeffrey Simmons, right, which is a deal that you're going to have to worry about, and I think Big Jeff is going to spend the entirety of his career in a Titans uniform. So I think you are just reloading and are really trying to create an identity for what this Titans team is going to be and what it's going to look like in the future. And I think it's on the shoulders of Cam Ward. And we talked about the leadership component, but his game, for as chill as he is, you always felt when he was at Miami that you had a shot to win the game, and you did. I mean, he was there for the Heisman Trophy presentation. I mean, the Miami. I mean, the Miami Hurricanes haven't been relevant since I've been able to drive. I mean, that's crazy. That's saying something. I mean, they truly have not been relevant since, I mean, 20 years, guys. So, yeah, for him and what all the rest of these draftees are doing and the value and specifically what they've done, with the minor losses that they've had in free agency and kind of replacing it with younger, faster receivers. I think the Titans are going to really, really come away. And you have Jacksonville, you have Houston, and you have Indianapolis. Um, Jacksonville, Houston, yep, and Indianapolis. I think truly, um, you look at Houston. Obviously, he's going to lead that division, but the two spot is up for grabs. I think every team is trying to figure out what is our identity, what is this going to look like. There's quarterback issues right now in Indianapolis. Jacksonville's Jacksonville. I think they have a new regime. I think that the Titans and Jacksonville are really neck and neck to see who's going to unseat Houston. And right now, I think the Titans have a better long term fit for sure.
And you didn't even mention it, Big, but they've got Xavier Restrepo. They brought in his boy from Miami.
Oh yeah, they did, man. And the voice, the FaceTime call, he was like, there's gonna be some bad
Yeah.
intentions, and I love that. I was like, you know what, that boy's pissed. He's got a familiar target. I think they're gonna really do some special things.
Yeah, they certainly could. Mark, I wanted to ask, just thinking about the draft in its totality, give us your favorite pick and your least favorite pick and why. Mark, did we lose you? Is he frozen?
Favorite pick,
There we go.
yeah, everybody's
I
answer
got
would be, usually would be Ward. My favorite pick was actually DK. Um, I like the fact that they went for speed. Um, I read a crazy. Well, here's a crazy fact that I learned at the end of the draft. Only five, I think it was only 4 or 5 of the Titans draft class qualified RAS scores, and they finished 21st in the NFL with RAS with those 4. That was a 10 spot increase over where they were last year. This was like the first year where they really like looked at the athleticism and the scores like that as well as everything. So to me, DK was, he has the speed to take, like I said, he can challenge the defense and he's got good hands. So I mean, he was probably my favorite pick. And and you brought up Restrepo, that being able to get him as an undrafted free agent is kind of insane. I mean, I know his measurables, a 4.85 40 killed him, and no team is going to draft a guy with a 4.85 wide receiver, but he plays faster than that.
Yeah.
And, there's something to be said about, watching tape. You know, I mean, the guy knows how to get open, and he's got a great shot at making that roster. It's kind of amazing how that wide receiver room looked like a weakness heading into the draft, and now you look at it and it's like there's 5, 6 deep, before you start the competition.
Oh yeah, most
So
definitely. No, these receivers are really going to be the strength, I think, of this offense. And, you know, um, Callahan's always been known to air it out, even with his times back with Joe. And I think he obviously there's not a Jamar Chase in that room. There is a Calvin Ridley. Like Calvin, like I am obsessed being a Falcons fan. Calvin Ridley was amazing. And I think getting your young quarterback, a reliable target that to me can run every route on the route tree and just needs a chance. I think that's what you pay Calvin Ridley that contract for, and I think he's going to prove his value. And you supplant him with talented playmakers and pass catchers. And I know he didn't test well. Helm was absolutely outstanding during his time at Texas. You can look at the college football playoff game against Arizona State. Those last 2 drives by Quinn Ewers, I mean, he was all over the football field. Looking at the, his time during SEC play, there was a game against Arkansas where he absolutely showed his tail, and I thought he was going to be in the Tyler Warren Loveland conversation, and he did not test well. I mean, I think he truly had a bad combine performance, but try to make up for it at pro day didn't necessarily happen either. I think that they got a really great value pick with him, and I think him and Chig are really going to do a lot of damage inside to defenses in this upcoming season.
yeah, I agree. I was actually shocked because I watched a lot of college football. I was actually shocked when I saw some of the measurables. You know, the Restrepo one, just the Titans specific. The Restrepo measurement that surprised me. Helm was another one. Uh, he plays better than what his times are. Um, you know, so we'll see how he goes. I agree though that they're two tight end set now, or really they could go three with Wiley
Yeah.
and create mismatches. Especially in the red zone. Especially the red zone now, with Pollard, or if this Mullings, this physical, guy can pan out, especially in short yardage. 'Cause I think wasn't it the Detroit game last year where they had like 4 cracks from the one and couldn't get it in.
Yeah, for
but I
sure.
think they threw the ball 4 times.
Ugh,
No, it's
big Derrick
exactly.
Henry.
That's something totally different. But
Yeah,
you
no,
know,
I think
but I
there's.
do think
One of y'all go ahead. All right.
Can you
Anyways,
guys hear me?
I can hear you. I got you.
Okay, sorry, it froze up for a second.
Yeah, go ahead, Meg. What were you
No,
gonna say?
I was just gonna say I do think in a short yardage situation, there's a guy by the name of Nick Chubb that's currently available that I do think would be great for the Titans to pick up. But no, to his point, I think the draft class was really on par and filled a lot of needs. So
Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit more in depth about the Tyler Lockett signing. Mark, you just alluded to it a little earlier in the conversation, talking about how it was sort of a draft pick within itself. He is a little bit long in the tooth. Obviously, he's just a reliable guy out there in Seattle. Used to be obviously a big time deep threat for Russell Wilson and those Seattle teams and what have you. Give me what you think is a realistic expectation going into this season for a guy like Tyler Lockett within this wide receiver room and the type of production that he can bring. You think he'll be more impactful on the field or off the field, more specifically, like you were talking about with those young wide receivers?
well, that's a good question. I think Lockett should be able to, in my opinion, pull up 40, 50 balls this year, 700 yards easy, playing opposite of Ridley. Um, and that's going to be valuable. But I think his veteran leadership in that room is going to be bigger than anything else. I mean, I really like I really like Ridley. I think Ridley can run every route, can make the catch, be explosive. But you need that consistent guy that's going to do the dirty work. That's the one thing I will say that I noticed last year with Ridley was, he made a lot of catches. He, stretched the field, went vertical, but those tough. They had Westbrook Akine who made those tough red zone catches, those tough third down catches. They needed somebody like that. I think that Lockett could do that, but be better at it. You know, um, I think even at his age, I think he's 32 now. I think even at his age, he has a little bit more juice left than Westbrook Akine had last year. Um, I mean, I think you see that in the market. I when he left Miami, I think he signed like a 2-year, $5 million contract, and Lockett's is I think 1 year for 4. It can go up to 6.
Yep.
Incentives. So I think the value that he brings is tremendous. And I'm honest, that is something that veteran leadership is something that this team lacked last year in some ways. When I looked at it, they had Jeffrey Simmons up front on defense, but then there was nobody else that was really. I mean, I think I read somewhere or heard last year that Latham that Latham was taking the lead as the leader of the offensive line.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a rookie, making a position change. He was a right tackle in his college career, moving to left tackle. And he's the lead line. You know, so I think that is the one thing I've noticed this entire offseason is the focus on bringing leaders to different areas. Zeitler on the offensive line, um, was it Woods in the secondary? Now Lockett into the wide receiving room. I mean, I think there's been a plan this entire offseason, and I want to say they have that plan and they've hit it every step of the way.
Malk, you got anything else?
not necessarily, man. I mean, I think that you definitely hit it on the head, Mark. I mean, this is going to be an exciting time for the Titans organization and a great send off for what I think has been a successful chapter. Although a Super Bowl didn't happen, you're 3 yards short from one of an era in Nissan Stadium for the Tennessee Titans, and excited for what's to come for the organization.
No doubt. All right, I've got one more question for you, Mark, before we let you roll. And my question pertains to just this team in its totality as it sits right now. I know you were talking about some of the additions that they made. Who do you think needs to take the biggest step forward on the offensive side of the ball and on the defensive side of the ball for this Titans team, as Miggy alluded to a little bit earlier, to take that step to get them to maybe be that second team in the South?
Well, on offense, I whoever plays quarterback has to be better. I think it's going to be Ward at the end. I think Ward is going to start day one. I mean, I know they keep talking about there's going to be a quarterback battle between him and Levis. I don't see it. I mean, it could happen, but I just don't see it. But if I go, if you go with the chalk answer of Ward, I think Dan Moore, agent, the right tackle position last year was terrible, and I mean that was beyond terrible. It should be taken care of with Latham moving back to kind of his natural position. Dan Moore got paid a lot of money to come in and solidify that offensive line. So he needs to step up and take that next step to protect the blind side of whoever is going to be playing quarterback for the offense to function. They have weapons now, you know, veterans. Um, Pollard couldn't do much more than he did last year. I mean, they could have used Tajay Spears could stay healthy. That would be a big step forward. I mean, I think he had 2 concussions last year and a hamstring. I mean, that's big. Defensively, I'm going to say L'Jarius Sneed. They paid a high price for Sneed last year, not only the draft picks, but they paid him a lot of money. And even before he got hurt and missed the rest of the season, he wasn't performing up to his contract. I mean, Brownlee on one corner looks like he's, a solid draft pick from last year, but they need that number one corner that they paid, millions of dollars for. And, if they can just get some coverage, I think they've got enough pass rush to get to the quarterback in some combination, whether it's Simmons, whether Jones that they brought in, Arden Key, who flashed occasionally last year. And, if they could work this guy from UCLA and I think it's Femi is his first name. They could work him in and he can tap into any of his potential. They could be pretty good, but they need Snead to turn around from what he was last year.
Yeah, they certainly do. L'Jarius Sneed, I was really high on coming over here. I thought he played incredibly well for the Kansas City Chiefs, and unfortunately, it just didn't end up working out. And I'm hoping that it'll be a better second year for Sneed in this secondary because the Titans could certainly use him. Greg Larnard, Mark Miakos, and Mihalko, excuse me, and Miggy Malcolm Harris hanging with you here on Chat It Up. Mark, we really want to thank you and appreciate you for jumping on with us, talking some Titans here today. If you want to follow him up on Twitter, follow him up there at Scarlet Circus, Again, and find all of his great work over at TitansWire.com. Again, Mark, thanks so much for spending the time. We can't wait to have you back to talk more Titans, hopefully as the season gets a little bit closer.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Make sure you follow us all over social media at Chat It Up Sports. Again, I'm Greg Larnard for Miggy Malcolm Harris, for Mark Mialko, and Joseph Guthrie in the background. We'll catch you next time.